Hey there and welcome. My name is Tina. In today's video, I am teaming up with Layne Staley. I will give you some background information on him. We're going to talk through his soul contract. And then I'm going to pull and some oracle cards, and then I'm going to provide some keys to unlocking the box we can sometimes find ourselves stuck in. Those will be provided at the end, so please stay tuned till then. We'll get you lots of those keys to unlocking some of the issues that Layne struggled with in this particular lifetime. So, who was Layne Staley? I had not heard of him until one of my subscribers suggested I take a look. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate people putting in the comments celebrities who've crossed over to the other side. So so I had wrote down Layne's name. I keep kind of a list, and then I had forgotten about it. And so one day I had this tall blonde figure, male figure appearing to me, and he had pink in his hair. And so at first I thought, oh, this must be Aaron Carter because he had recently crossed, but it didn't quite feel right. And I thought it probably was too soon for Aaron because he had quite a lot of struggles going on. And they usually, if there's a lot of struggles with the passing, usually they don't come through because they have a lot of things to sort out once they get to the other side. And so it didn't quite feel right. So I was drawn to looking at my list, and then I noticed Layne's name on there. And so I Googled him, and this picture came up, and he had this blonde hair, but he had pink highlights in his hair. So I was like, oh, okay, so here we go. So then that's when kind of our collaboration began. And so I've been enjoying his energy and his company over the last few weeks, getting to kind of know him because he also, just as we all do, had a lot of struggles during our incarnation here. And so I'm going to give you the little bit of a spiel here as far as who he was. He was an American musician, a songwriter. He was the original lead singer in I call it the rock band. A lot of it's kind of heavy metal, grunge. Couldn't quite put these guys in a box, so to speak, which is where we are starting off here. And so he was the lead singer in this band. He was also a member of different types of bands as well. C's, Mad Season was one, and the Class of '99. So he, once you start looking at, it's always fun to get somebody that you really don't know a lot about, even though they are very famous, because it really was fun getting to understand them. And I know a lot of people, at least contemporaries that around my family would not, they're not really into heavy metal or grunge or anything like that. But once you start to really delve in, you start to really see the genius and the creativity that they brought to the table. And so I'm always very open to looking at different musics and different people that I may not be aware of, because it's very much fun when you start to really look at, as we're all so valuable when we come to incarnate here. We have so much to offer, and Layne was no different. So the second single from their debut album, Facelift, was Man in the Box, and that's where I'm coming from and where he wants to come from in this particular soul contract reading and channeling. And that record debuted #1 on the Billboard 200. And we're going to talk more about the lyrics in that chart once I pull up his chart here. So he died on April 5th, 2002. So it's been quite a while since his passing, and he's learned a lot on the other side, and he is coming through and people now, as channeling becomes more, popular now and is becoming more accepted. He's one of those souls that are really looking forward to coming through because he has a lot to offer from the other side, and this is part of his continuing his learning process as well. So again, he died on April 5th, 2002. It happened to be the same day, April 5th, that Kurt Cobain had died 8 years earlier. And the reason I bring that up, because Kurt was quite a hero for him. And when Kurt had passed away, and I do have a video on him that I will link at the end of this video as well, if you're interested in taking a look at that one. You know, a lot of these guys, when they do end up not being able to manage their life and cross over, they become symbols for others that are very inspired by them. And so Kurt was one of the big inspirations for him to continue to look at trying to get help for his own addiction issues here in this. He still didn't quite pan out for him, and we will also get into that. He was only 34 years old, very young. And so I want to go ahead, if you don't mind, and let's pull up his chart here. So if you can give me a second, my system has been just a little bit sluggish today. And so I want to, again, sorry, I'm also have gotten over a cold recently. So I am maybe clearing my throat a lot more than normal. So let's bring up Layne and talk a little bit about him. I like to bring him up because I have pictures on charts, and it kind of brings through his beautiful energy. So like I said, my system is a little slow, so if you can just be patient with me, that would be wonderful. Let's see if we can get this to come up here. Not sure why it's taking so long. He has a very, very strong energy, and just why, since I'm pulling in this channeling, I tend to get a lot of interference, because when we start bringing in those energies, they can sometimes interfere with the technical part. So here we made it. Let me just see, because I tried to stop sharing, so maybe if he comes off the screen here, we'll pull it back up again. So here is the beautiful Layne Rutherford Staley. Again, as I've always talk about our soul contracts, it's based off of our birth name. He did change his name because he did not like Rutherford. And later on, if I have time, if we don't get too long in the video, I will bring up the vibrations for that name that he was trying to pull in to help him, and why that didn't necessarily work for him. So again, as I always say, our soul contract is made up of 2 triangles. We have our physical triangle, which is where we kind of start off with emanating out to create our reality. And then we have our spiritual triangle, which we start to work in, which would have been just not too long before Layne ended up passing away, because it's usually around the age of like 32 to 42 that the spiritual side of your chart really starts to flow in. You always pull in some of the energy from the numbers regardless, and those can be negative and positive energies. So we'll talk more about that. And then as I always say, we always have these aspects to our charts that bring in challenges for us, and then we're given these beautiful qualities, which are talents or gifts, and then we have drives, things that get us out of bed, things that move us forward, and then we have our ultimate life purpose, what our soul in this particular incarnation wanted to achieve. So, as I said, Layne was born a Leo Virgo, and wow, Leo energy is very prevalent in his chart, because Leo energy is all of these 9s. I'm going to highlight my mouse here, so let's do that quick. And then you can see where I'm going here with all these nines. And it says right here in his chart here that he's a dominant 9 vibration. And I pulled up these two pictures to really showcase how beautiful he was. And I can see that Leo energy, this kind of, you think of Leo, the lion, they're very much out in front. They exude this beautiful, radiant energy. He's got this beautiful blonde hair. And I love this picture, this black and white picture, because it really showcases how beautiful he was and how kind of sculpted he was. He was always very thin. So he, didn't always have a lot of flesh on him, but you could really see his good bone structure and just how beautiful he was. Beautiful eyes, kind of deep set, kind of looks like bluish eyes. But again, we manifest to our physical appearance based off of our numbers, because he has a lot of Leo in his chart. He has some Venus energy, which gives him even more beauty and these beautiful eyes, because Venus, this 11, which is Venus energy, is tied to the eyes. And then 4s are this tied to the sun, and it brings in a lot of the sun energy and would make him very much need the sun. He would derive a lot of energy from the sun. So that would have been a clue we could have given him as to maintaining his energy balances with this particular chart. So I am going to pull up some of my notes as we go through his chart. And again, I want to repeat that he died on April 5th, 2002. And I'm always, again, very much into the numerology of the numbers, because again, for April, which is 4 month, and 5 add up to that 9 in his chart. And then if you add up all of the numbers with the two twos in 2002, you get his 13-4 here. And Kurt Cobain, I believe, had 9s in his chart as well, being that April 4th day. So, we talk about the man in the box being a number, the second single, which is the 2s in his chart, and debuting number 1. He's got some 1s in his chart, on the Billboard 2000 or Billboard 200. I don't know what it was. And then the other kind of interesting thing about the numerology that I could relate to some of the things that I was hearing was that he was very serious about becoming a singer, even though he started out with percussion and drums. Again, that's that powerful 9 energy, and 9s, I'll get more into the detail of, is about feeling vibrations in the body. So I can see where the percussions would come in for him, because you're to learn how to feel in the body with the 9s. This is very, it's the most powerful energy for all of the numbers that you can manifest with. And so the story that was told by his mother in an interview that I had watched was that he had written down in a Dr. Seuss book at the age of 9 that he wanted to be a singer, and what a singer he was. If you get a chance, definitely listen to his vocals. They are quite powerful. In fact, I think I had read somewhere where he had one of the most powerful voices. I think he was considered in an octave 4 range. Of course, he had 4. I saw one where it said octave 4 and then octave 7. Of course, he has 4s and 7s in his chart, but that he was one of the few men who could hold those octaves for such a long time, and that is attributed to that powerful 9 energy. And so he took that very seriously. A lot of people don't give credit to a lot of bands out there, and the reason that he was as successful was because he did take it very seriously. The whole singing and creativity, which is very prevalent in his chart, and he also was smart enough to reach out and to learn how to use his voice properly. And this is all, you know, you see here that he has these 9s in his challenges, which is a very difficult, as you well know, obviously, he struggled with so many things in his life. And it's because he chose this very powerful number, the most powerful number. We call it the dragon energy number. And he picked it as his part of his challenges when he came here. So this was not ever going to be easy. And but he did give himself a 9 in talents, which is where his sense of self, the positive aspects of that creativity, and like I said, him being strong enough to seek out voice lessons. And he got his voice lessons from Maestro David Kyle, who also trained legends such as Chris Cornell and Ann Wilson of Heart, who is one of my favorite bands of all time. And if you know Heart at all, Ann Wilson was a powerful singer. And so David Kyle really had kind of this unusual way of training people and how to sing and how to connect with visions and things to bring out the dominance in their voice. And I found it really interesting how it was very much a progressive way and not so logical about how to sing powerfully. And so that was really fascinating. You know, if you're really interested in that, I advise you to take a look at David Kyle. He has a website out there. It's pretty fascinating. So again, like I said, Layne was very serious about becoming a singer. And so, you know, the issue with having all of these 9s being such a dominant number is that 9s can be very hard on the physical body. Yeah, I know, big surprise, right? Because you have this unconscious feeling that no matter what you do to your body, you'll be okay. And I often saw him in a lot of different videos when I was connecting with him, and he would draw me to different pieces of videos and things to look at to kind of get a feel for where he was in his chart. And I often saw him in a cast, something was broken, on crutches. So he was definitely very, very hard on his body. And that doesn't even take into account the drugs that was going on with him. And so when you have 9s in your challenges, what this is really about for somebody, and for Layne, this would be about manifesting, you know, people giving you a hard time. You would be bullied, lots of resistance here. You know, 9s tend to come into this pattern of recreating things, trauma that has been done to them in the past. So of course, this is a person who had a lot of trauma growing up, as we've all have, but definitely, again, very disempowering things happening to him in his life. And so why we would choose something like that is, you know, it's about learning then how do we take our power back. So in this lifetime, having challenges, we're meant to manifest into the positive qualities here and to overcome these challenges. And so that we're given these qualities to help us in that process. And so, you know, with 9s, you have a lot of resistance going on here. And he would have a lot of resistance to change, of course. But it's all about learning, again, how to overcome them. And so he was also exposed to a lot of strict religious views from his parents. And his dad abandoned him. His parents got divorced. And so this was also very disempowering from him, because our father figure in our life is that stabilizing force. And his father also had a drug problem. So again, you know, I go back to the Kurt Cobain, which is why he was so drawn to him, because Kurt was dealing with a lot of ancestral issues with that type of stuff as well. And so that's why he was so drawn to him, was to learn from him. We're drawn to, you know, again, the master will appear when the student is ready. And so when you're drawn to different things, it's really meant for you to go a little bit deeper. And so he could repeatedly disempower himself through these different, you know, manifesting different things, you know. And so it's really about learning how to feel and then understanding how to transmute those feelings. And so anger comes with a lot of that resistance. So it's really about, you know, and the nines are tied to your kidneys. So it's about really where the kidneys are what clean all the poisons out of your body. So that's what the nines, you're meant to learn how to clean all of the poisons, not just out of your body, but out of your mind. So that was, again, a lesson that he chose to try to overcome. And so I wanted to read to a quote that he had drawn me to about, you know, this is really tied to the nines with, you know, I have a fascination with how brainwashed people get with religion and how they'll give up their money, their time, and this is Layne's words, and their whole life for a cause that they're sure is right, but I'm sure is wrong. I think there's a lot of people who are scared of life and living, and they want to make sure they get to heaven or whatever. I try to stay away from it as much as I can. I was raised in the church until I was 16, and I've disagreed with their beliefs as long as I can remember. So when I had the choice, I chose not to believe in anything apart from myself. And so this again was Layne starting to realize there was more going on here. So he's this very powerful person. He's got the nines in his talents here. Very powerful person, even though he's in the negative part, he's manifesting a lot of disempowerment and a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma. But he's also got this talent where can see the deeper meaning. He can see where other people are not taking their power back, how they're giving their power away to these religions and gurus and people they think that know better. So again, this was meant to show him not only to see that in others, but to as well see it in himself where he's disempowering himself. And he says, oh, I can see that now that I'm on the other side, that he wasn't quite seeing that. And so again, that 9 in talent and his qualities or talents gave him, you know, that most powerful vibration. And this also made him super creative. And again, as far as his voice being so spectacular, he was ranked number 27 on Hit Parader magazine's top 100 vocalists. And I saw it under a couple other awards too, where he was ranked very high, 27. Of course, we've got the 2 and the 7 here. And the 2 being tied to the emotion and the 7 being tied to his heart. And so when he was singing about those deep emotions that tugged at his heart, and then of course the 2 and the 7 add up to that powerful 9. And so the last person to speak to him was Mike Starr, who ended up dying in 2011, which was 9 years after Layne. And so to me, that was a very karmic relationship. And the reason that I bring that up is because Mike wanted to call 911 because when he saw how bad Layne's condition was, he realized he should have stepped up and called 911. Now, Layne talked him out of it. And so he carried that with him. And that's what I mean by the karmic relationship. There's no blame here. I'm not blaming anybody, but he took a lot of blame on himself for not doing that, not stepping up to say, I care enough about you to get you medical help, even though you're choosing not to take care of yourself. And again, this is all part of what our connectivity. And I'm not saying that he should have died because of that. But again, that was another excuse for him to also continue on his path and not grow from learning about Layne's departure and what, again, happened there. So again, that I probably will eventually look at Mike's stars as well. I might end up doing a overlay reading where we can see Layne and Mike, and then we had his ex-girlfriend who had passed away, Demarco, on how they all interacted together with the band. And because all of the numbers, again, we come in with these charts, but we're in these charts, we come in with a soul family, and you come in with your parents, and you're extenuating your friends, and and relations, and we're all meant to grow from each other. So we play on each other's numbers, and it's quite fascinating when you start to see it all together in the big picture, like all the band members, and how they all interacted with how their numbers interplayed, and how they, like, Layne, and I forget the other, oh, what is Dennis, or I can't remember, sorry, what the guitar player who wrote most of the songs, and how he said they really inspired each other, him and Layne did. So, and they were so very loyal. There was a lot of love between these guys. They were very loyal together, and really supported each other. And so after Layne's death, in 2008, I wanted to bring up that Metallica called the title of their album Death Magnetic with the song Rebel of Babylon. And I thought that was really interesting because, I really got this vision of him in Babylon and kind of partaking in this very heretic type, serving the self and not taking care of the soul type of a existence. And when you look at Death Magnetic, sevens are considered the magnetic number. And we'll talk a little bit about the sevens. So, and then it was also Nancy Wilson from Heart. Again, I had mentioned that band earlier, and the sevens are tied to the heart. And she wrote the song The Dragon, about, in memory of Layne, and it was recorded in 2016, and that adds up to a 9. And of course, 9 is a dragon energy. And so they were, from a very deep level, they were pulling on the energies of Layne's energy, and they captured it spectacularly. It was wonderful. And so the sevens, so his drives were, what was he meant to his, goals, physical goals. It was really about him learning how to work in groups, learning how to accept himself just as he was, because sevens are a very Gemini energy, and they can very much hide from the world. So you can kind of see this very disempowerment from the 9s, being hard on the body, ingesting things that are very toxic. And then he's got this 7s where he's supposed to learn how to not hide himself. And so they do, people with 7s, I see they take on a lot of different personas. David Bowie was one, Layne was, we talked about, he was in the band Seas and Mad Season and kind of this glam, and he would hide a lot of who he was. And that's a very prevalent of having a 7 in your chart, because it's really meant for you to come out of hiding and be your real, true, authentic self. And they kind of have this deep fear about not being seen as well. So it's kind of this dual-edged sword. And they also develop, there's also this sense, and the 4s can have this a little bit, because you'll see that he's got a couple of 4s in his chart, about there being something bad. They feel like there's something bad about them, that they're not, it's a worthiness issue at a deep unconscious level. And so they think there's something bad about themselves, and they have this fear of being seen. And so then they try to hide away from the world. And of course, he had these deep isolation energies where he was isolating emotionally and physically. And so again, so that's what was playing out kind of on that physical side of his chart. The 7s are also meant to unite people, through the 9s being his talents, which is his creativity and his music. So he did manage, that was definitely, being in a band was also, part of that uniting others in a common link, which makes it stronger, raising people's vibrations, helping them through the pain, which they did. He did. I remember him saying in a lot of his videos or things that interviews about how he was very inspired when people said how it really helped them to work through a lot of pain that they were going through. And that's what he really was meant here to do. And so, again, when I say when you hit your 30s, you start to really come into this spiritual side of your chart, which he had again, he took another 9, the hardest number again one of the hardest numbers to overcome, the most powerful. And the 11-2 is about the builder energy. So it's about him really building some truth in this lifetime, some knowledge, some, body of truth. And so it really is this Venus energy, like I talked about before with his eyes. And then the 2 is kind of this moon energy. So he's very much about moods and controlling his moods, especially with this disempowerment of the 9s. He was probably doing a lot of self-medicating to try to regulate his mood swings, which he would have had some issues with having this, even though it's in his talents. Again, he was pulling from a lot of negativity here because of having those 9s and challenges, which would bring in a lot of the lower vibrations. You're meant to work through those. And so he really took a tough chart here. And so the 11-2s remind me of this song, Love, Hate, Love. And so it was a song about pain and regret and loss, which is very much tied to the 11-2s because 11s are really about you learning the value of your life through seeing other people lose their lives with Kurt Cobain, and then Demarco also lost her life as well through all of the drug abuse. And so this 11 is a very, it's about learning to let go. It's one of the most extreme numbers to have. So not only does he have the most powerful number in a very karmic, challenging position, he's also got the other extreme number about valuing life and having life to death experiences, pushing the envelope on your life. And so it's about learning, for one thing, to let go of what's no longer serving you. And obviously he struggled with that very much so after he lost Demarco. He really had a lot of regret and had a lot of guilt. Those are very negative emotions to be carrying all the time. And that brings a lot of pain and a lot of negativity to your life. And so, and also, this 11-2 brings in even more creativity. Now, Layne had more passions than music. Photography and drawing and art were 2 other definite passions that he had, that music was opening up for him. And however, the negative sides of these numbers, 2 is also this foolishness to wisdom, clouds your judgment. I've talked about this in a number of other videos. Whitney Houston too, taking on dysfunctional patterns from other people, being dependent on others for making decisions in your life. Even though the 7 brings in a lot of objectivity for him, which isn't the greatest to take with the 9s, because again, it keeps him out of the getting to more of those positive emotions, because it keeps you kind of in this objective kind of energy. So, and 11-2s are super, super sensitive. They have trouble because I said it's connected to the eyes. And they definitely have trouble seeing the world as it really is. And these numbers can also be very self-indulgent and inhibiting your sense of self. And both of those things were going on very much so in his life. So that number being tied to the eyes reminds me of the tattoo that he had on his back, which, again, on your back, you think what you're shouldering, right? What you're carrying around. And so you had this picture of a man with his eyes sewn shut on his back. And again, reflective of the 11-2, not wanting to see the world as it is, not wanting to see your place in it, your value in it. And so I was a little disturbed by that, you know. And so also, you know, can be carrying too much on your shoulders. And so again, that's learning to let go of what's not serving you. And so this ties definitely into the Man in the Box lyrics. So, okay, so I'm going to read some of these to you. So these are very interesting, a little disturbing maybe. So bear with me. So, and I think about this tattoo with the eyes sewn shut. He goes, I'm the man in the box, buried in my shit. Won't you come and save me? Feed my eyes. Can you sew that? Jesus Christ, deny your maker. He who tries will be wasted. Oh, feed my eyes now that you've sewn them shut. So in 2019, of course, Man in the Box was the second most played song of the decade on mainstream radio with 142,000 spins. And if you add that up, that ties into the sevens beautifully. And so my favorite Alice in Chains song was Nutshell. So if you get a chance, listen to that one. And so these are the lyrics from Nutshell. And a lot of this is about, so what did he mean by this man in the box? And it was really about, for him, it was tied into censorship in the mainstream media, where it was hard for people to get out the music or to get out what's really going on, again, seeing the world as it really is instead of in these false sense of reality. And so the Nutshell lyrics are, how we all chase misprinted lies. You know, we just believe whatever the media tells us. People tend to do that if they don't have a lot of critical thinking behind them. We face the path of time, and yet I fight this battle all alone, no one to cry to. My gift of self is raped. My privacy is raked, and yet I find repeating in my head, if I can't be my own, I'd feel better dead. So he talks about, again, this ties into the fours, which is about that sense of self and radiation of spirit. And it also, fours really want to be seen for who they are between the sevens and the fours, and this radiation of spirit and wanting to step out and be seen. And the fours are all about trusting and making that happen. But then he talks about how he's getting trapped in the mind and the head again, right? Sticking himself in the box, mired in your own crap that you from yourself. So again, a lot of symbolism here to what was really happening in his life and what he was creating. Because remember, we all create our own realities. So it's okay to understand that there's a collective consciousness and a reality with the collective, but we also create our own realities. So there's a different, always have to take responsibility. And now that he's on the other side, he takes very much responsibility for what has happened to him. And so let's talk a little bit more about these fours. So again, with fours, you're here to trust in the flow of life and to share of yourself. It's all about abundance and however, the opposite again can manifest as you can become very self-centered with this number, and then you push others aside, creating in more isolation, something he was really, again, isolating himself. And that's in addition to the sevens where he's hiding himself. And so again, I talk about the fours, you need sun because you draw on the power of the sun, which radiates. So again, he had locked himself inside where he needed to be outside in the sun. I guess Seattle's probably not known for their sunny weather. I would very much advise him to definitely take rests and go to sunny places and recharge. And so along with the fours can have a little bit of excessive pride, and this is also something that comes from the nines. So again, somebody who's too prideful to admit they're in trouble or that they need help, and they're not looking at themselves at a deep level. So what was Layne's life purpose here? It was this 13-4, which actually is a can be such a beautiful energy. It's all about unity consciousness. It's very idealistic. However, you know, for what this meant for Layne overall was what he came here to achieve was to connect to groups of people, to bring them together through his music or his artistry, singing, to share what knowledge he had gained to help others, and to be a protector of others as well, to be a voice with his lyrics like Man in the Box, which picked the censorship in the mass media, and to share compassion and help those who felt ostracized and unaccepted like himself. He was also to bridge the gap between the masculine energy and the feminine energies, which we all have. We saw Layne embrace his feminine side, dressing in drag and showing others that it didn't make him less to do that. You know, it was just part of his creativity. And so it's important to understand that our creative energies do come from the feminine. I struggle sometimes being creative because sometimes I'm more in my masculine because our society, our culture is very masculine dominant. And so it's very important for us to be able to balance out both of those energies. And for him, it was also about the 13-4 is about this about delving into the waters, and water is emotion, and to see what is hidden there, to bring it to the surface so it can be cleansed and healed. And so the negative side of this number, you know, unfortunately, is one of the harshest as well. Self-destructive escapism, that's what he was doing, escaping through video games and drugs. Evasion of responsibilities to his other bandmates and the people in us. We don't just have this isn't just about us on this journey. It's about connecting with others and giving and receiving. It's a continuity. Those sevens you see the 3 links. It's all about us all linking together. It's never about just going it alone. And and also the 13-4 on the negative side can be refusing to face your motives and committing to a path of healing and coming out of that box, that shit you just put yourself in. So Alice in Chains, right? Again, Alice referring to the feminine. I know they took it from Alice Cooper, but think of the chains. You're tying yourself. You are giving your power away to these drugs and drinking and all of these things, which brings on a lot of what I call that lower energy feeders. And it wasn't that Layne didn't try. He went to traditional rehab 13 times, 13. But again, traditional was not something. When you have a 13-4 in your chart, these are like Christ consciousness energies. These are higher frequency energies that are becoming more prevalent in society now. And so, but again, it can have a negative side as well. There's a few of Layne's quotes that he wanted me to share with you, especially about the drugs, and which I always call the spiritual bypassing. No, I have no judgment about that, except how hard it is on the body, and that it's people wanting to get to this higher level, but taking the shortcut, the drugs, which is so toxic to the body and allows for all of these, which we call the bottom feeders, to just drain your whole body. And by the time Layne did pass away, he was only 86 pounds. 8 and 6 add up to 14, which is a very intense experience. That's what that tells me about that. So several of his quotes he had written were, I wrote about drugs and I didn't think I was being unsafe or careless by writing about them. I didn't want fans to think heroin was cool, but then I've had fans come up to me and give me the thumbs up, telling me they're high. That's exactly what I didn't want to happen. Drugs are not the way to the light. They won't lead to a fairy tale life. They lead to suffering. So we're going to pull a few oracle cards from. He's drawing me first to this activations, something that he could have used to unlock the box here. So let's see what comes through for Layne. And so number 8 comes through, and this is, I love this is his colors for sure. So hang on, let me stop sharing so that I can show the cards as they come out. This is the number 8. And so 8 is all about grounding. This was something that was really lacking in Layne's chart, was a lot of grounding energy. And when people don't have a lot of grounding energy in their charts, they have a hard time working through these energies that are in their chart. And so he did choose that. And when he did change his name to Layne Thomas Staley, he that did bring in a little bit more grounding, which is what he was looking for. It wasn't quite enough. I would have actually encouraged him to do another name change and optimize to bring in much more grounding energies for him. And so let's read this card, because this card, isn't this his colors? The kind of that sacral, that lion energy. And then you see the orange here, which is your sacral, in your intuition. And then this purple, which is that higher knowledge. But it says the frequency of alchemy activates our magical ability and remembrance of the magic that we all hold inside. Each one of us has the potential to access the ancient knowledge that allowed the true alchemist to perform the miracles of transmutation. And so again, we were talking about transmuting that very poisonous energies, because again, energy is meant to be felt and transmuted. That's why they call it the emotional planet here. We come down to the 3D to deal with these emotions. And of course, we get the opposite side of that, the bliss, the joy, the freedom that comes with it. So he's bringing me now to the wisdom of the oracle deck. And oh, we got quite a few cards popping out here. 3 jumped right out at me. And so again, 14 popped out first, a 1 and a 4, and that adds up to 5, which is tied to independence and freedom. And this says, truth be told. And you see there's a mask on this card and an owl for the wisdom. So, and then the owl is holding a window, opening your own gate to your freedom. And so it's about telling the truth to yourself. Truth be told. People around him were, he was telling me there were so many people, they were trying to keep drugs away from him, trying to help him. And so this was all on him. And of course, 14 is that extremely intense experience. And then we have a 25, round and round. Adds up to 7, round and round. And you can kind of see the spirals here and the stars and how he was spiraling, right? Spiraling out of control. And then we had the serendipity card, 18, which adds up to a 9. And so 18 is all about seeing things from a bigger perspective. And so serendipity, let's read that. I think I have read that before, and there's a great message for somebody here that he wants to share. And so it says, opportunity allied with readiness, the awareness of synchronicity, luck and good fortune appearing as signs and symbols, a magical alignment of events. So this is about, you've stepped into alignment with a greater good where your dreams and the collective dream resonate in exquisite harmony. Now is the time for luck and preparation to meet and create miracles that you could never have planned all by yourself. Keep in mind that you are a channel for providence right now, as a higher energy uses you as a force on behalf of the whole world. Your fortune becomes everyone's fortune. Remember, he's 13-4, unity consciousness. Everything you bring into being now will leave a wondrous legacy for others in the future. Your service to the world is being supported at this time. Expect the unexpected and smile, for Spirit loves you very much. So, what a wonderful message. If that resonated with you, that message was specifically for you. Now it's bringing me to the Elemental Oracle. So let's see, this is all about science and magic as well. Oop. Oh yeah, so we've got number 10. Number 10. And this is bushfires, fury. Again, this is karmic. This is a very karmic cycle. I talk about karmic cycles. Some of you could be ending a karmic cycle right now. This may be an ending of a karmic cycle for him as well. And so you can see the 3 kangaroos getting out of the fire. 3 is all about communication. And so we've got somebody, an indigenous kind of shaman here with his face painted. And definitely some of you guys are coming out of the fire. And then the other one that came out was number 2, which is in his chart again. That, remember, I talked about the moon energy and the ups and downs with emotions. And this is adventure, south. So some of you may be traveling south. Some of you may be planning to travel south. I would encourage that. But it also for him meant to be more adventurous. He got really stuck. And you can kind of see, I'm trying to see what this is, almost some type of a transformer. I see a person holding a umbrella. And then like a compass. And really, really exploring here. The 2s can be tied to exploring as well, wanting to see things from different perspectives. So that's really another beautiful card. Those for some adventure. It's important to maintain that sense of adventure. You lose that sense of curiosity and adventure, because that's what life is all about. There's so much. We can never know it all. And so the next card from Wisdom of the Hidden Realms is the Metal King. So he's aligning with this picture of the Metal King, the mask, the armor. He didn't want to feel the 9s. They don't want to feel. They go right to anger. And then, you know, it's really about learning how to transmute those energies. And so this is about discipline, armor, boundaries. 37 is the number, which again adds up to 10, which was that karmic cycle. So again, how important discipline of the self is, taking care of the body. Armor when you need armor. There are times when you need armor because, again, protecting yourself from those negative energies. When you're doing drugs and alcohol, I've talked about this before, you're opening up holes and tears in your field, we have this webbing we call the matrix over us, and you're allowing tears, and you're just allowing, again, these negative energies to come in and feed off of you, which again puts you in a spiral. And again, it's about boundaries. So very, very interesting how the Metal King. And he's got a pair of like scissors. I'm really drawn to like this scissors in his hand, about cutting things out. And so The next card I'm getting is another 14, that intense experience that he was going through. The intensity, he was really in the intensity of it. I know he suffered greatly. All self-inflicted, mind you. So all about his learning experience here. Miss Spiderweb, reconsider your alliances, make new connections. So this is one of those keys to unlocking the box, right? Reconsider who you're surrounding yourself with. Whenever you see spiders, remember that is all about getting creative. You know, the webs, creating a new web. We just talked about that karmic web or that matrix over us. It's like a webbing. So making new connections, healthy connections for yourself. And 14, again, that's those intense relationships we sometimes surround us up. We get addicted to them. It's another addicted. 9s are known as dragon energy and drama queens and kings. So I have the archetype cards coming through. So, and of course, Don Juan appears. So maybe he had a little bit of this Don Juan energy going on. So spotlights your positive seductive qualities, which is, you know, we're all sexual beings. There's nothing wrong with that. When it gets to be very toxic, though, is when it's using that power of your romantic gesture, of that romantic attraction for your own private agendas. And again, that's of being very selfish, narcissistic. Excuse me. Again, hurting others. And we can see, you know, the music here, using the music to use other people to get your own satisfaction. And we know a lot of rockers go down that path and they usually have 4s in your chart. That's that very selfish rather than, you know, sharing of themselves. It gets to be more about serving your own needs. And 13-4s can do that well as well. Closed heart, where they're closing the heart down, and so they just use people to, and he said he could be very much like that. And so he's just wanting you to recognize where in your own life that you maybe just, you know, again, it's recognizing your own motives, you know, and we all have a shadow side. It's not about, none of us get away from that. We all play those little games, and I don't care. Mother Teresa did, you know, there are times when she could be a little tough too. So it's all about, again, seeing ourselves, our shadow side as well. And so, okay, we're going to talk about the keys to unlocking the box. So if somebody had a chart like Layne's, you know, and we're looking to get some help. So he wanted to talk about how you can change your relationship with others by how you think about them, and how he would always hear how he was a junkie and how he was, you know, all these negative things. And so if you can remember that we're all connected and our thoughts are connected as well. So it's very important for us not to over-identify with our thoughts, because it's a trap. Every thought that has ever been thought exists, and you're attracting your thoughts. If you can think about it this way, you attract your thoughts with your emotions is what attracts the thoughts that you put out are eventually what you manifest, right? But you really manifest through your feelings. So again, the feelings and the thoughts are tied, and it's the cycle that that goes through. If you really want to hear the scientific perspective of that, I would highly recommend listening to Joe Dispenza on about the, you know, the thoughts and how it is tied to the emotions, and then how scientifically we end up manifesting based off of those, that cycle, your cycle of your patterning. So So it doesn't mean that anyone has power over you. We can give, again, give our power away to others, but you can change your relationships. And this has worked for me in some of my intimate relationships as to how I think about the other person and how I put them in a certain light. Because if somebody does something to you, you usually start to expect it and you start to think about it. And then it's really funny how they will keep repeating the pattern, but you can break that pattern by your own thoughts. And I've done this in my life myself, where I changed the way I thought about them. And it was funny because their behavior ended up changing towards me. So we have a lot of more power than we think about our relationships. So again, that doesn't mean you can make somebody fall in love with you or anything like that, but it's super powerful. And you should start, I encourage you to start playing with that, really putting people who you were having a negative issues with in a good light in your own thought process. So, all of these people having negative thoughts with Layne and not believing he was going to get help and just seeing him as this crippled person instead of seeing him for the strong person he really was, would have helped him. So because Layne had so many nines in his chart, we talked about that. It would have been good for him to be in some type of a martial art. So I did read he was a yellow belt. I'm not sure in what modality that was, but so he had participated in this activity, which is great for learning about your power and how to use it properly. So it would have been very beneficial for him to continue to pursue a master's in that field, because it would have continued to get him to mature into about using his power properly. And then he would need to learn some anger releasing processes to help build boundaries from the manifesting of those disempowering situations that he had been in a pattern of doing. And so really releasing anger, we talked about how the nines were connected to the kidneys, which is how you cleanse your system, right? About releasing the poisons. And so anger release, learning different types of anger release processes is super critical in building those boundaries. Then we would have recommended practicing an Osho dynamic meditation, and because this is very helpful for people who get very locked up, like he was very stuck in the box we talk about. And so it's really helpful for getting energy flowing in the body. Qigong is also understanding how energy flows, acupuncture. There's so many things that Layne could have been doing to release, because pain and trauma get stuck in the body. And then again, he's self-medicating. And again, he is in this very vicious cycle, and it just destroyed himself. Very self-destructive, which the 13-4 is, and their most negative side is very self-destructive. And so he would have needed a very safe, extremely safe environment in which to express his feelings of disempowerment. So a therapist that could have really made him feel safe and seen for who he was could have really helped him to commence that emotional thawing out process. And he would have I would have highly recommended any type of divine healing for all of the trauma that he did suffer and put upon himself. And I would have considered, this is maybe a little bit woo-woo, I don't like to use that term, but light body integration work for allowing more light in the body, which would have definitely pushed out a lot of that dark energy that he was continually pulling in. So that would have been very, very, very beneficial for him. And so those are the keys to unlocking the box that I had for you. So thank you so much for being here today. And Layne is so appreciative for you sharing in this journey with him and seeing him now in his complete form of who he was, his great talents, how powerful he really was, how much he had to give, and the things that he did accomplish, all wonderful, wonderful things he did some really great things while he was here. It wasn't all negative. So we have to take the good with the bad and celebrate all of those wins. And he is celebrating those wins in his lifetime and working on those other challenges, because even though he was a very self-destructive, again, as you get over to the other side, the learning continues. And so he's learned and grown a lot from that experience. And he will be incarnating again. He's going to give it another try. So we're looking forward to bringing him back again. So thanks, Layne, for being here, for sharing yourself with me. And I did want to say he wanted me to wear this Led Zeppelin t-shirt. It's a Holy Rock t-shirt I had. And it has this symbol. The Led Zeppelin symbol is a symbol of Icarus, which is a Greek mythology about learning how to fly. But you have to be careful because Icarus flew too close to the sun, which burned his wings, and then he fell and drowned in the ocean, which is all symbolism for drowning and those emotions, because he wasn't able to cleanse that, or he wasn't able to, again, transmute them. And when we talk about flying too close to the sun was tied to his 4 energy, which is all about the sun, but using those drugs and things to fly too close to the sun without doing that work that he needed to do. And of course, the 13-4 symbolizes the water, that emotion, the divine feminine, and delving into the deep water to see what's hidden there. And so I thought, oh my gosh, how that really, he wanted to point that out and share that with everyone. So I almost forgot to, but thanks, he reminded me. And he wants to thank everybody who continues to listen to the music and do some of their own healing, feeling the pain and transmuting it. And now that you have some ideas on how to get yourself out of the box. So thank you again for being here. And I'm going to put the Kurt Cobain video, I'll link that in. And as always, I put, please subscribe if you haven't already. And I always put, and comment if you would like me to do somebody specific, and comment about too what you thought about Layne and his music if you go get a chance. Like Nutshell was my favorite, the music and stuff really resonated with me in that song, but a lot of them could be a little bit harsh for me. I've done a lot of my trauma releasing, so I don't resonate as much with those anymore, that type of music as much anymore. And so that's not bad or good. It's just wherever we are on our frequency. So again, thank you for being here, and I wish you all the best. Take care and much love. See you in the next video.